Hello and good day, everybody. Welcome back to my humble abode. I am Professor Quibblefingers, 3rd Earl of Gloucester, acting chairman of the National Silly Bugger Society, and owner of the world's only nuclear-powered hat. Please, come, pour yourself a fine brandy and take a seat by the fire. Miss Lakshmana will be along shortly with a nice slice of coffee cake, so, please, relax and allow me to regale you with one of my tales. Now, I was born into a modest family, when all is said and done. You know, just myself, my father, 24 servants on a country estate, located in the heart of 3,000 hectares of prime arable farmland, and closely encompassing several small villages, an old growth oak forest, and not to mention another dozen servants at the townhouse. You know, like I said, fairly modest. I never really knew my mother. She ran away shortly after I was born and married a vicar of all things. Oh gosh. I guess there's no helping some people. Now my father, on the other hand, I knew him well. Lord Humphrey Blowhard Quibblefingers. You would know him if you saw him. Great mutton chops and a moustache you could use as a propeller. A vast and imposing character he was. He made his fortune in the spice trade, and after spending far too much time on the high seas, it was time to settle down and enjoy his ill-gotten gains. He wasn't too bad to me, considering I was his only son and heir, but he could be a right tyrant when he wanted to be. Why, he once became so enraged that he whipped 5 peasants for non-payment of rent, dragged them back to the manor, bent them over and forced them to become his toast rack for the week. I hope they remember to move the crumpets. It was eventually decided, however, that I should make something of myself, after a carefree childhood of hunting, fishing, tumbling maids, and the like. As such, I was to be given an education. It was then decided that I would be sent to Cricket Academy for young gentlemen. It was quite something, I assure you. I received the very best education. I learned, 3 key lessons. Firstly, I am fully incapable of riding a horse. Vile creatures they are. They look at you with their teeth, and unfortunately I have about as much aptitude for the saddle as a slouching bag of potatoes. Secondly, running away from your problems might not solve them, but at least it could delay the inevitable. This doubly applies to the problem of being chased by several older boys for cricket bats. And thirdly, I'm something of a crack shot. Maybe not a record breaker, but I can comfortably lay down 35 rounds a minute with a bolt-action rifle. If anyone gives that reference, get a bicky. Of course, you have to provide the bicky yourself. Oh, come now, you've already had a slice of cake. I'm not made of baked goods. In any case, this last skill won me some acclaim, and as such, I was requested to represent our school at the badminton school annual shooting fete. For those who don't know, badminton school are the bitterest rivals of Cricket Academy, and as such, we take every chance to try and embarrass them. And then afterwards we rub their noses in it. By Jove, we needed to get them back for last year. They managed to get our entire team drunk before we even started, and by the time the shooting began, they painted their backsides green. It looked like a collection of brambly apples. Anyway, in any case, I was selected to shoot for our school's marksmanship team, and I was determined to do us all proud. We began soon after we arrived, and I was most bemused by my opponent. It would seem that Cricket Academy had selected for their team this year a young lady, one Miss Escarina Buntington. That's a hard word to say. She was a remarkable woman, tall, raven-haired, eyes and tongue as sharp as a rapier, not to mention the wine-red skin, curling horns and tail. Sure, she may be a half-devil, but I won't let a few things slide given the circumstances. Oh, and she wore trousers! Trousers, I say! A woman wearing trousers? Oh, my goodness. Still, I had a job to do. The honour of Badminton lay on my shoulders, and so, attractive half-devils or not, I had to show them my best. 10 rifle rounds, 200 yards to the target, shooter with the most bullseyes wins. Now, of course, I was fairly confident, and soon the shots were flying. Neck and neck we were. Bull after bull was scored. Now, I was somewhat perturbed because, well, I might be a good shot, but she was matching me shot for shot. But I had done my research before I came to the fates, and I had learned of my opponent's greatest weakness. It would seem that Miss Escarina Buntington was deadly afraid of spiders. As such, I'd come up with a cunning plan. I had gone to my friend Prin. No, you'll learn more about Prin later, trust me. Ooh. And they had lent me their trump card, the largest, most brightly coloured and fangsome arachnid they could lay their hands on. It was as we came to the last round, 9 for 9, 1 shot remaining, that I played this spider. I casually released him and sort of shooed him in the direction of my opponent. And by Jove, did it work a charm! She failed to notice the creature at first, but as soon as she did, oh, did she scream! She flinched her shot, scored a bull 10 instead of a square bull, and then ran off trying to get the spider to leave her alone. It was most humorous, I must say. And then, with a twirl of the moustache, I lifted my rifle. I took careful aim, held my breath, squeezed the trigger, and I missed. Missed? I was stunned. It was unthinkable. How could I have missed? But clear as day, there was not a mark on the target. I could not understand it. It was then, of course, that Miss Buntington approached, looking slightly worse for wear, but still rather handsome woman. But she had since escaped the spider. Bad luck, she said with a teasing smile. I must say that the trick with the spider was rather innovative. However, perhaps you should try practicing your shot rather than firing blanks. Blanks, I thought. Blanks? I checked my rifle. At some point before the shooting had begun, she'd swapped out my final cartridge for a blank. The very nerve of the woman. As you can see, she the very thought that my ploy was good, but she was better. She'd outfoxed me, a bloody vixen. That it was, well, if I wasn't already taken with her, my God, I must say I was by that point. A woman who could outsmart me and was just as good of a shot? My word. And so, with a waggle of the old eyebrows and a twirl of the moustache, I decided perhaps I should make my move. Madam, you have enchanted me. Are you willing to join me for perhaps a slap-up binge at Mrs. Miggin's pie shop? My treat, of course. At that point, she patted me on the cheek and shook her head. I'm sorry, my dear, but while you are a good shot, she said to me, that's all you've got going for you. You are a young man, but you have nothing to your name, nothing beyond your father's legacy. And I'm looking for someone a little more interesting in my life. With that, she turned away, leaving me dejected and thinking about women in trousers. I'm not exactly sure what happened over the next few hours, only that I did what any man would do under these circumstances. I got beastily drunk. I remember making my way down to the Hellfire Club to drown my sorrows, and began pouring rum on top of gin punch. Now, I believe there were cards and dice and possibly scantily clad dancing girls, but none could take my mind off of Miss Escarina. I never did get my left shoe back. The next thing I remember, I was roused by being tossed from my bed and landing on a hard floor. Wake up and get to work, someone barked, and I found myself scrambling to my feet, only for a mop and bucket to be shoved into my hands. I was going to complain. This is hardly treatment of the Hellfire Club should be given their patrons, only to realise that this wasn't the club anymore. Looking around, I groggily made my way up, and I found I was aboard a ship. The city of Twynford was disappearing into the distant horizon, and there was nothing but blue ocean around us. I had been shanghaied! Shanghaied, I say! Taken from my home and forced to cruise a ghastly vessel. There I am, penniless, one-shoed, wearing little more than my shirt sleeves, and now being carried God knows where on a blasted sailing ship. Oh, it was one way to start my life of adventure, I can tell you. But I think this is where we'll end our tale for today. Thank you for coming, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this slightly shorter story, and I hope to see you all again soon. Cheerio!